All right, waiting on Coach Rick. So I start every live. All right, let's see what we got here. One person, two. Go to movement join. Jordan, bro, you just gotta be on here whenever you're not here, huh? Miss Lynn. Accept that. Come on now. Go to Army. I hear you, bro. We building.
What up?
What's
That was
up,
me.
Coach?
That was Go to Movement. You know
I figured that.
how like the notification pops up real quick? So I was trying to jump on quick,
Yeah,
and it was giving me a notification through Go to Movement.
Yeah.
My alias, our alias.
Yep. No, I got it. Right. Yeah, people they'll message me on Go to Movement,
Yeah.
and then they'll message me in my inbox too. And I'm like, I just answered.
It's a tight-knit tribe over here, folks.
Yeah. We got it all. What's that?
Nothing, man. I was thinking we didn't even really chat on what we wanted to start with.
Yeah, dude, I don't even have time. Like I said yesterday, it's just so crazy. Everything's back to back. I was leaving today after this live, and I had a lady call me up. She's like, I'm 52 years old, been doing CrossFit for about 10 years. And she's like, every Friday I can't walk up the stairs at my house. So she's like, her son's like a world champion or something like that too. Like they got a gym about an hour and a half from here. And she's like, I got what it was one of the clients over there came see me, and he's like, you know, everything's personal record over there. So you PR, you beat your times, you beat your reps and all of that stuff. And he's like, they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, I feel the best I've ever felt. And he came in here yesterday, and he was doing some I did some table work with him because I've been trying to push it on him, you know, like, man, I could even make you feel a little bit better if you want. And he came in and he did it. So, and then I put him in the hyperbaric because we just got the red lights put in the hyperbaric, and we got we got a heating pad in it too, like if you want it hot in there. So it kind of becomes almost like a sauna type effect inside of the compression it's crazy, dude. And then it's got the vibration technologies, and it's got all the grounding effects. So like if you somebody that likes to go outside barefooted in the grass, it's got the stones in it and all of that stuff. So on the recovery side, we put that in there, and just it's just sexy.
Well, that stuff feels good. That was in Muscles and Meridians. That was in I think Born to Run touched on that. A lot of the minimalist shoe companies, but they create these like mats now that you can, and they tell you to put them. Philip Beach talked about having it at the sink or wherever you're going to frequently stand. Have like a little mat that's essentially like a pebble type. Our shower in our upstairs unintentionally has it. Yeah.
Has it?
And so it's like a natural massage that you get from the foot. But it kind of speaks to what we've talked about with foot control out in the wild versus foot control in modern society. Like the amount of sort of, you know where you are and sort of delicacy you need to have at the foot level. Yeah, it's very strategic. It's more finely tuned. It's almost like handwriting to me. Like a kid, you know, can just scribble or whatever, but you learn how to finely tune your handwriting, and it's like they learn how to finely tune their foot inside of a very, you know, what seems to be a chaotic environment. They seem to find something, they find order out of that chaos. And then when you have order over here, where you got the sidewalks, and chaos just erupts because you can be as sloppy as you want. You don't need to find order. You know, it's like already set out for you. You just follow the sidewalk. So you're allowed to walk sloppy. But that's all.
When you break that analogy down, like, you just go to the mall, right? Or you go to the airport and people's walking through there and they nonchalant and the feet are turned out and they in flip-flops. And then you go look at like a tribesman that's on the hunt, and he's on the hunt, but he don't even see an animal yet. He's still like in an athletic position. Each foot, he can't put the heel on the ground because there could be a spike.
There ain't a Starbucks,
sticking up, you know what I'm saying?
So it's like up the way. Like that could be a fucking lion. Like I don't know what's up there. Like you gotta keep,
you might be getting hunted and you don't even know.
If you're out in the open, but when you put the walls around you and you put a shoebox on your foot that allows you can do whatever you want. You can stub your toe. Like for the most part, you're pretty good in that shoe. You're not going to get nicked up. But you go out there in the bush, and now you got to deal with some chaos a little bit, and you have to be ready to roll. But you're more tuned in that sense out there. But that idea, the grounding mats, all that stuff, it's all good. I mean, you want to, and what we're doing is resetting, a system. Like we're resetting the musculoskeletal, but by all means, better digestive health, better circulatory health, all those things go together on both ends. It helps when you're recovering that way, and it helps when you're training GOATA. Obi talked about it. Just noticing, like we've heard this a lot, athletes' cardio feels better. Like it doesn't feel like there's as much energy that needs to be expended in a usual, effort, whatever it may be. It could be running suicides with the team. You just generally know that, hey, by this point in the suicides, I'm usually gassed. For some reason, I don't feel as gassed. You're more efficient than you were before. And you should be trying to do everything with, don't take this the wrong way, the least amount of effort. Like it should be almost conserving energy when you're inside of an athletic event. It's like that effortlessness concept where like they look fluid, they look smooth. They're not like, gritting and like super tight muscles. It's actually more fluid, more smooth, like when you're competing. And it's not this like, all out tension effort. That's kind of something that you can take to your GOATA work. Like I've noticed if you get somebody lined up properly and you get them where they should be, they should feel like it's in an effortless state. Like they don't need to create tension. That's why like lining up the musculoskeletal system, lining up the bony landmarks to us has always been a better cue for the athlete, because when you try to direct them with muscles, they start to squeeze things. They tighten down the system. Whereas you're trying to find, you're literally can't express this enough, that you're trying to find space throughout the system. You won't get that by squeezing. Like you're already tense when you show up to GOATA. Like everybody's already living with tension in unnecessary spots. You're already tightly wound up somewhere. So when you try to go to that, you start to just, you compress the system even further. But when you line up the biomarkers, the skeleton, well, then you go ahead and you open up the system a little bit more. And then you're like, okay, where do I feel it in relationship to where my bony landmarks are lined up? Not what's comfortable, but where my bony landmarks are lined up in space in accordance with matching tape. Then you tap into that feeling, and now you keep repeating that, and you just everything gets more and more effortless, more and more less effort in your sort of day-to-day, in your run, and then you recover faster. You wonder why the GOATA athlete generally is better in the fourth quarter. A lot of those, they can play longer. It's the Tom Brady, it's the Michael Jordan, it's all that kind of stuff.
Somebody was asking, and I know at first I looked at it like that. He was like, how can there just be 25 people here, like on the live? And what happens though is
people know
put
it's
it on
YouTube,
YouTube,
part of it.
And the views, the shorts are getting like tons of views, like 2,000, 3,000. I mean, tons. That's a lot for us. We're not 100,000 views.
We don't take our shirts off and dunk.
Not yet.
So we don't have the privy of having a system that's worthwhile.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about doing it, but
Bro, yeah, you just keep your shirt on when you tomahawk dunk, all right? Don't give them everything.
Yeah, I don't want to give them.
Don't give them everything.
I don't want 10.
When you do that through the legs dunk, keep your shirt on.
Right. when I reverse it or some shit. Somebody asked about can you be GOATA just from groundwork? The groundwork portion of the recode process is a lot of decompression work. It can make you feel better. It may make you feel GOATA, but you really need to tap into the way that I phase out my recode is I decompress, which is the easiest term to use. Which Rick was alluding to earlier was getting length, getting space, opening up the joint capsules. So if you would take and you would kind of just take the skeletal system, right? And if the muscles are all tight and everything's pushing down and it starts to turn and twist and disorganize and sucked in. So we got to really open all of that space up as much as possible. And then when we're able to open everything up, we can kind of restack it, right? Like reorganize everything, teach it how to load that way while always going back down to the ground. So as we're phasing out this recode process, we're never leaving the start behind. So we're always going back to the beginning and work our way through the furthest point. And then it ends with movement, right? It may start with some crawling, and then it'll start with, like we talk about, the 6 to 4 to 2 to 1 levels of support or points of support. So when we go through that phase, you know, we make, like I know in my recodes, like with the bow hip stretch, just for example, I may tell an athlete, like, look, man, you're doing a minute of the bow hip stretch the first few weeks, but you may cut that down to 30 seconds to kind of save some time. But you always got to go back there to make sure you have that access. You're not tight, especially if you're a football guy, because the nervous system's going to protect. So it's going to try to shut you down by tightening sometimes. That's why you get a hamstring strain or a hamstring pull or something like that. So let's say you're on the field and you get hit a few times and you get tackled, you get a couple of little bruises. You're going to want to protect that. You're going to want to compensate. So going into those positions, you may have to go back to a minute. Shit, you may have to go back and spend a little more time just letting the body be open, because with that space, with that length comes better blood flow, better circulation, better breath. Everybody's trying to do breath work when really if your body's decompressed with no stress, it's so much easier if everything's not packed in like that. So, you know, staying in that beginning and working your way through, you got to kind of go through the whole process to really become a GOATA. And that's when you're ultimately safe. You may feel better and stuff like that, but you got to really go through the process.
The slow motion video says you're safe. And when you're in your your subconscious run, so your sprint, like you got to be able to sprint away from the camera inside ankle bone high, and then you can feel comfortable about, hey, if I go sprint in a basketball game or track, whatever it may be, I'll be comfortable. But that's a good point about getting back to position. So like you should, like Gary's saying, take child rockers, for instance. Early on when you get introduced to child rockers, it may feel like very restrictive. Then it'll start to feel like butter. It'll be real smooth, and you'll be able to sit back into the position. You'll be able to sit in the Seiza, and you'll be able to sit for an extended period of time. So for you, for that person that's progressing, child rockers might literally just be at the start of your groundwork routine. You push back to, you know, from all fours to child rockers. You kind of check the box like, yep, ankles still feel good. Maybe I spend a couple seconds there. That's where you start to, the progress in groundwork, kind of the stuff that's not taught, but it starts to become something that is worked towards from a comfort standpoint, is you just get into all fours and you push your hands, like use your hands to push you back. You're really just trying to push those sit bones to your heels, whether in child rockers or toe tuck rockers. But if you look at them as milestones, meaning there's something that it's a position that I want to check the box for, and I want to feel very comfortable at that position. So the first one would be, I guess you could say all fours, even before child rockers. I want to check that all fours box. Then I want to move to child rockers. So all fours becomes child rockers. I get really comfortable there. Check that box. Child rockers essentially becomes toe tuck rockers. Can you get comfortable in toe tuck rockers? Okay, check the box there. Then toe tuck rockers gets pushed back to a bolt iso hold. Can I get comfortable? Can I get strong in the bolt iso hold? All right, check the box there. Now, once you get to that milestone where you can find the bolt position, which means you're comfortable in child rockers, you're comfortable in the toe tuck, you've got enough strength in the hip capsule, in the ankle, and the Achilles to sit into a very low, I consider it to be the most stressed out bow that you'll get from a double leg standpoint. It's that parkour guy landing from 10 feet. Kadori. The bolt squat is really reverse engineered from the Kadori guy and how he lands in a moment of maximal impact. We call it the bolt squat because we got the image of Bolt on the wall.
It's really why we walked away from
we watched that video.
Because we see
it's a Spider-Man like low squat. So really once you get there, you're loading like a really max absorb bow. That's why the bolt squat's so tough. If you're doing it correctly and you're honest with yourself, you probably have 15 seconds of good rep in there before, when you first start, before you got to drop to like a bolt rest and be like, dang, dude, like I got to go back to that. So, okay, let's say you can hold that for like a minute. Now you start to build, you know, now you start to build more length in your corner there, because now you're going up to a hinge, then you're up to a no support bow, which is like a bow wall sit concept. Then you're split. That's what our Recode program does. Is it's going to get you comfortable in all those spots and keep you comfortable in all those spots as you keep adding pieces to the puzzle to get a bigger picture, which just essentially clears up the image as your assessment presents. So your standing gets cleaner first, and then your squat gets cleaner second, and then your walk gets cleaner, and then your run. And so as you're progressing through the Recode program, you're literally watching your assessment, each part of it getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And you're really just washing out a bunch of bad inputs over time. How long does it take you? Well, how many reps will you give us? How much time under tension is probably, how bad are you, and how much time under tension can we get and will you give to the system? But it's really straightforward. I mean, it's a very simple process. That's why if you're outside of that realm, which a lot of people do, like a lot of people, if we were to put them in a hip stretch rocker, they wouldn't really be able to organize, and then let alone put them in a side-to-side rocker, iso hold. They wouldn't really be able to organize or truly hold it. Then you put them in bolt, and they still can't get their foot straight. But if I watch them work, they're actually spending more time on one leg, or they're trying to spend more time on one leg, and they didn't really like take the steps necessary to make it so much easier to work off of one leg. Because if you're trying to work off one leg early, you bring in all this support, you don't really create enough decompression. You start to, lightly go away from the math enough to where with that type of time under tension at that much stress or that much pressure in the system, it doesn't really get the desired result. So you feel better in a sense because maybe you stopped lifting, you stopped doing other destructive movement patterns, but you're not really like wringing the towel on the Recode. Like you're doing GOATA work, but you're somehow not turning into a GOATA. That should be like an alarm for you. If you're doing GOATA work and you're not turning into a GOATA. This is what we laugh about these people that like, bro, how could you post yourself doing this many drop-ins for 3 years and you still stand inside ankle bone low?
And then you don't set
I'd be embarrassed. Like I know I'm behind the desk. I'm the coach. I coach the wide receivers. I don't need to run the skinny post, but damn it, I know how you draw it up and I know how to teach it. I know exactly where you need to get to. Yeah. It's a different mindset. So if you're doing thousands of drop-ins, it's confusing. Like if you're doing that many drop-ins and all this work and you still land inside ankle bone low, there's something wrong with your programming, And so it's not about, so it's like this participation trophy era. You have these coaches, these fitness trainers nowadays that they think that I work out, so my workouts work. That's like the thought process. Well, I'm working out, so the workouts I'm doing work. That means literally nothing. Like it means absolutely nothing. What you need to be able to do is recreate that in another human, and then another human, and then another human, and then that's the scientific process. It's reliable, it's repeatable here in Willoughby, Ohio. It's repeatable in New Orleans. It's the same program. It's being carried out through different bodies. So you have this weird thing going on where you see all these people doing all this what looks like GOATA work, and they work all day at it, and they're training their tails off, and they give great effort, and they don't move GOATA. They don't move GOATA. But Jameis Winston comes in, you don't have a clue what GOATA is. Gary gets him for 10 days and brings a bow out. Why? Gary don't set no bow like Jameis does. I don't probably set a bow like Jameis does, but what is it about it? Well, it's the same thing that allows Bill Belichick to run a Tampa 2 fire zone when he's never dropped into zone himself. Like, it's reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Like, it's the dude, you don't understand. Like, there's coaches and there's athletes. Athletes are going to make the thing happen, but the coach has to draw it up. So the coach would be spending hours and hours and hours in the film room, watching the tape, X's and O's, drawing it out on paper, creating the plan. Then you take it to the athlete, you explain it to the athlete in the Cliff Notes version, and then they go out to the field, and then they actually score the touchdown. They actually sack the quarterback. They actually carry out. That's how we frame GOATA in our minds, just to clear it up for people. Because people are always like, Rick, why don't you post your run? I'm like, because I don't work on it. It's not what I work on. Like, it's not what I spend my time on. What I spend my time on is finding the best version of cover 2 for this team, right? Finding the best way to run that skinny post. Like, I'm literally learning from the greatest coaches and teachers that I've ever watched, and I'm doing what they're doing just with the GOATA system. Like, it doesn't, because my point being, if I'm to recode, the narrow approach that I'm going to take won't let me understand the system in its entirety. It won't let me scan the full system because I'm just going to be selfish and worry about myself and recode myself. Whereas when you're a coach, when you're a teacher, you need to see the system from a macro view. You got to be the owner. You got to be the CEO. You got to have hands on everything, all different types of possibilities that could have derived from, you know, somebody going through their recode. So that's why it's important to spend time learning the global laws, treating those as the science. What's reliable? The global laws, to me, tend to be reliable. The more that I look at them, the more that we pattern them into our athletes, and our athletes start to show those patterns back to us, and they start to feel better. They start to act more durable in their sort of sport, in their whatever task or skill it is. And then we see the measurable results on the back end as well. Gary just had a guy that went through combine training, comes in day 1, runs a 4.84, tests out at a 4.5. Interesting, right? So, because we're being told that, well, you can't make guys faster, you can't make guys stronger, but we are. But we are.
Gained 10
right.
pounds
it's like,
too.
You know, you can't change people's behavior, but we are. Like, it's literally happening. Like, we've got a blueprint for it. We've got a plan for it. We've got a way of acting it out in multitude of athletes, multiple levels across the world. Like, it's easily repeatable. It's easily carried out, but it's the loneliness of discipline. Like, how much discipline is it for you to stick to your guns when people come in there and try to train?
Yeah, and as you know, AB helped us out with some of that too. With you know, but when everybody's on the same page, and the underlying principles is the global laws, back chain dominant, good foot strikes, and things like that, bows, then it becomes, you know, even in the 5-10-5 with them guys and stuff, they, you know, now he's seeing like, man, if you don't set a bow, you're gonna slip. If you don't get that pressure loaded into that column right, you're gonna slip. Well, if you're not back chain dominant, you can't keep a low center of gravity or a good low pad level to be able to change direction. So, you know, they always teaching low pad level, but they can't get the guy to stay in his back chain because the exercise is the front chain.
It's hypocritical.
Somebody
in the weight. That's what I noticed was the field and the weight room tended to be hypocritical. And then, like, even like,
well, and all they're doing is they just mimicking. Like, nobody's ever sat back and said, well, this don't make sense. They just keep going with it because the guy in front of them did it that way, you know? And that's what GOATA so hard is we don't follow the norm by any means. Somebody said working on head control feels like it's tweaking my neck and my shoulders. Like a good
word by tweaking?
I would have to see, are you working with a coach? Freed insight. Are you working with a coach, or I'd have to, like, I don't know nothing. Like, sounds like you're not in your back chain. It does so much. So another thing too is you know, the recode process starts from the bottom and it works its way up. So, like, if you're doing drop-ins on day 3, you're probably not ready for drop-ins, which could be causing tension at the top. A lot of that, and I don't know if you're a high school athlete, college athlete, just general pop, I don't know. All of that's got to be taken into consideration, because when I get a high school athlete that comes in, he's decompressing for 2 to 3 weeks, because he's still going in the weight room every day. He's still deadlifting. Most of them are having lower back issues when they get to me because of the way that the deadlift, when the hips start to tuck under and the chest goes back, that right above that lumbar where it meets the thoracic starts to become. I had a kid come in yesterday that was kind of trying out the program. By the way, he's heavily recruited, and he couldn't hold a wall sit for 40 seconds. But everything's duck-footed, heels down, and it looked like he had 2 biceps in the middle of his back. It was so overdeveloped from pulling weight from the ground. And I know they try to teach tail back, load the glute, but at some point it's getting turned off and it's going to the quad. So, you know, at the strongest moment when you're driving out of that lift, you're in the quads. And then they become front chain dominant like that, and they rest with duck feet and all of that stuff. But getting back to the head control thing, head control, it should almost, if you pass all 3, if you pass the suppleness, if you pass back chain dominant, and you pass your columns, if everything's right, all it is just and I'll try to back up a little bit to where you could see. All it is it's a shift of pressure, right? So what head control becomes is if I'm in my columns, if I'm standing here in my columns, and then I want to get, and I go into my squat, I want to go butt back because I want to engage the glutes, I want to open up, and then I want to go down into my squat. If I'm going to pressurize a column and I'm going to have head control, I'm trying to get where you can see me. So now you lose your feet. This IG shit don't
good.
work.
I can see. Yeah.
So basically, what I'm doing is if I split this, if I take a good squat and I split it, it is the dig face. So I can take and start working head control, getting into the back chain, get the inside ankle bones high, and I can start working head control by just bringing, it's just this right now. If I'm in those beginning phases, if I want to use some type of support, a stick, or we put it right here for the drop in, I can start pulling that pressure out and try to get it all into one column. You might not be ready for that. And if you're still in your front chain, you could be causing yourself a lot of shoulder problems or neck problems because you're still in the front chain. The glute, the back chain dominance is not just a shape or a position. It's the actual muscle accepting that pressure into that column. And if you don't have that stuff, then you could end up hurting something because you haven't gone through the RICO process.
What it sounds like to me when I hear something like that is that somebody is, and this is our natural human tendency, so it's not getting on you because we've all done it, I've done it too, is we hyperanalyze or we just go back to micro. So because the part that's somewhat suffocating about GOATA is the macro sort of the need to always stay in the macro, even when you go and take a microscope approach to learn more about one piece, you still have to keep the 40,000 foot view. And what I mean by that is don't get fixated on, well, I'm working on head control. No, you're working on foot control. You're working on tail to crown. You're working on where the kneecaps are pointing. You're working on where the arms are. You're working on where the chest is pointing. You're working on, in order for head control to be right, all those other cues that I just named have to be there as well. So no one cue is more important than the other cue. They are like sort of hot spots or, important quotes along a chain that puts together a bigger phrase or a bigger picture, right? A deeper meaning, if you will. So you got to kind of be, as we would say, scanning from toes to head to fingertips throughout every rep. So if you're sitting in a drop in like you think you are, right? And then you're just working on like, I'm just going to get my head control. Like I've seen this with people. I've seen the wet people do this where they hyperanalyze the torso. They get obsessed with the spine and they can't get their head off of it. They can't see that the spine is the limbs are the spine. Like they'll talk about integration, they'll talk about this, and then they'll be like, yeah, the spine. So then they start hyperanalyzing one thing, and then they fall away from global laws. So revisit all of them constantly when you're doing your workout. But then, like Gary said, you have to be, honest. Like if you're, look, guys, if you're on this thing and you're following our YouTubes and you're following our IGs and you're following Twitter, you're following it, and you still can't just like jump on Recode 225 and follow along, and you still are lost, it's time to get an assessment. Like it's either time to get an assessment, or it's time to hire a coach, or it's time to get into the certification to understand the deeper dive. Because at that point, as much information as we're going to try to put out, there's some point where it's like there's categories. Some people are going to need a coach. Other people are going to be able to kind of do it on themselves and follow along and get the results. But if you're like really struggling with the details, like somebody asked about the big toe thing, there's a lot of things I could say about it, but it's also ultimately a look and a feel that you got to get used to, because you have to accept, okay, I'm inner ankle bone low. Where I'm about to take my foot in this drop-in is not going to be a place of necessarily comfort and strength or control. It's going to be new. It's going to be foreign to my foot compartment. And at first it should feel weird. It should feel like it's, it doesn't mean it feels awful, it hurts or anything like that, but it's a new sensation. It's not comfortable. You can't just snap your fingers and drop into an inside ankle bone high position. If you could, you wouldn't be trying to do the GOATA work or anything. So what you want to find is you need to find a way to keep your big toe knuckle all the way across to the pinky toe knuckle. And that would be like the base knuckles, not like the actual toe. That's going to be down as well. But what's most important is that, because you can have like the tip of your big toe down. I see people do this. They'll keep the tip of their big toe down, and that big toe knuckle, the ball of the foot, they lift that up. That's WOTA. So you need to really harmonize and focus on from big toe knuckle to pinky toe knuckle is down. For people that are really inside ankle bone low, when you go to lift your inner ankle bone high, it will feel like a tug of war. So from a perception standpoint, you might feel like you're driving down through your big toe as you're driving up through your inner ankle bone high. And that sort of tug of war between the front inside corner of the foot and the top apex portion of the half dome structure are almost in a tug of war, a momentary tug of war as you're recoding, until you can get more space through those metatarsals, the cuneiform, the navicular. You got to understand there's a lot of bones down there that need to create space, that need to have that half dome popped up. That's why if you spend a week or two this is why we tell people to spend a week or two at child rockers. It's not just to slow their roll. No, we know that, like when you break in a catcher's mitt or you break in a baseball mitt, there's like this stiffness that's there. And then eventually you create this like nice pocket. Well, you create a nice like pocket in the foot when you get really good at child rockers and toe tuck rockers. You start to kind of like prep the foot, as Gary would say, for that ultimate position of the bolt hold. So if you're skipping child rockers, toe tucks in the bolt, and then you're asking a question of, well, I have trouble keeping my big toe down on my drop-ins. You didn't do GOATA right. You followed the wrong pages. That's not what we're saying. You need to do child rockers. You need to do toe tuck rockers with flying colors, meaning these need to be down as the inner ankle bone climbs high, and you need to push back to bolt. That is like the intro to GOATA. This is why, and soon we'll have the Recode program up. We just had our certification sales page go up, which will give you guys way more information and let you get privy to some videos and stuff if you guys go sign up on there. But our next thing that we're working on is Recode 225's Recode program, where all of our fans, all the people that are watching, they're now going to have our Recode program that we use with all of our top athletes. The stock regimen, sort of the one-size-fits-all version, is going to be on Recode 225. And if you follow that A to Z and you spend that time at those markers, you're going to open up the foot properly. That's what I would say to people that are struggling with, like, they want to stand up, they want to squeeze a plate to their chest. I understand you want to work out, but sometimes your foot's not quite ready. Like your foot's just not ready to be put in that no support bow. It's not ready to be put in that split stance drop in, or you got to be honest with yourself. But there's also an early part of that recode that is going to feel your first drop in's not going to be perfect, guys. So don't freak out over it. But just know that it's okay to feel like, man, I feel like I'm applying a lot of pressure with my big toe. Now, as I look in the mirror, I still see inside ankle bone high shape. Like I'm pressurizing with my big toe, but I'm not going inside ankle bone low. Well, because you know another cue to add to it. You know that you're keeping your big toe down, but you're lifting your inner ankle bone high. So you have a trump card in your back pocket, whereas other people that are thinking engage the big toe, they don't have the inner ankle bone high trump card. So they start to actually compress the big toe to the point where it brings the inner ankle bone low. That's when it would become a problem, because now you're collapsing. Now what you'd be doing is you'd be taking the outer ball of the foot and you'd be lifting that thing up as you went down to the inner ball. So you want both balls of the feet across big toe to pinky toe. There's really, I picture it like two tennis balls under there, because it almost feels like you can toggle between both. You want them both to anchor down. And when they both anchor down, this foot just like it cascades, it shifts, it all molds and forms into one cohesive shape. When the foot is in a cohesive shape, meaning from the cuboid forward, from the cuboid bone forward to all the front, the metatarsals, to the front of the toes, that is your ribeye. That is the platform. When that thing's right, your calcaneus that plugs in the back literally locks in place. So there's a cuboid calcaneus, there's a cuboid and a heel locking mechanism that takes place, and it only happens when you're inner ankle bone high. That's what you're going towards. Like that's what you're trying to get to, is where you put your foot down and your heel locks in place inside ankle bone high, because now your Achilles has this strong, rigid calcaneus to twist and sort of coil and uncoil off of. So you've got to have that big toe corner down, but you also got to lift the inner ankle bone high. So feel like it's a little tug of war at the beginning, but don't skip the milestones of child rockers, toe tucks, and bolt hold to jump to the bow wall sit or the no support drop in.
Yeah. Somebody asked, you know, and this is a big thing too, about they having trouble getting the ball of the big toe down. You just was talking about it. So what's the best way to lengthen that system? And like you said, spending those time in that child rockers. And then, yeah, the tools that I use is because a lot of times I have a very, very limited time with these guys. If I had like years, or if I had like somebody that came in general pop, I probably won't, and I don't use any kind of tool to help lengthen it, because I want that person to develop a behavior of from the exercise, where a pro athlete, he's got to get it almost immediately. Like sometimes I got like 2 or 3 days to work with these dudes, and if I don't get them right real quick, they don't feel a change quick enough, then they on to the next thing. And it's kind of just the way that the pro sports world's been built out. And you'll see these guys hop from program to program, to trainer to trainer. And they'll be with, like I got 2 of my guys right now that was with me for years that are doing the complete opposite, that are highly, highly successful in the league, like Pro Bowlers. And they doing something different now. But, you know, it's just the nature of the beast. Elaborate on the big toe torn, big toe.
It all goes back, like the big toe talk, to finish that up. It's all linked to kind of like we were talking with head control. Like I got to have all the pieces, because if I'm somebody that's just working foot control, for an example here, if I'm just working foot control, but I'm paying no attention to my tail to crown, then I'm not truly unlocking the ankle and the hip. And so the unlocking of the ankle and the hip is also a part of building an inner ankle bone high platform, you see, because you've got to have the foot that's holding still, and then something has to be moving inside of that foot to bring the ultimate health to both pieces, the foot compartment and the shin compartment. So like I said, what we've found, and why we're harping on a recode program, is because we have found that there is a very specific A to Z sort of path that you would want to take. Now, how quickly you can learn A, B, C, D, E, F versus, you know, the next person, well, that's going to depend on, are you a 15-year-old kid with no injury history and you just want to move better? Or are you 55 and you just had your knee replaced? Okay, well, those will be different sort of timelines as far as how quickly they work from A to F. But everybody's working from A to F, from F to Z, working on that track. Now, there are certain hot spots that I would say are along that track. The milestones will go child rockers or all fours to child rockers to toe tucks to bolt, bolt to bolt hinge. Then I'm up in a no support bow. So now I'm at like a picture of bow wall sit with no wall. Then I split stance. Now I'm in a split stance drop in. Then I go to a no support drop in. Then I go to a front drop to back drop tap. And then I go to a back drop. And I go to a back drop tap. And if I can get all the way to that point where my back drop tap is like, I could snap my fingers and pop into a back drop tap, and then I could load that up and I feel like I could jump out and spring forward and go affect change. If I'm at that point, most likely I would assume, based off of our evidence, that your end of your assessment would look pretty GOATA. You'd be getting closer and closer to GOATA, and the more control you possessed along those A to Z milestones, the more you'll look GOATA during your run, during your cut, your juke, your jump. So you see, it's not such like they used to teach us where it's muscle confusion. It's a multitude of exercises. I want you to take a more yoga tradition, a more martial arts tradition to this thing. And I want you to think skill. I want you to think perfecting a skill. So I want you to view these exercises, these milestones, as things to perfect. So they're not really, when you actually look at these things, this is why I always come back to them, is because I always wanted to be careful of making something that was Gary in mind. I don't want to do that. I want to always be pointing to you to something that's out there that's observable. All fours, child rockers, toe tucks, bolt position. We talked about Kadori, the picture jumping off of a 10-foot drop and landing. There's your bolt. Okay, no support bow, right? Picture yourself in a change of direction scenario. These are all archetypes that they're present in relatable sports, they're present in life, they're present in rest. And I believe that if you're checking those boxes of those archetypes, of those milestones, not just checking the box to say I did it once or twice, but no, taking a martial arts, a yogic mindset where you're literally perfecting it. Like you're trying to, down to its molecule, you understand that position to the point where you could pop out of bed, you could snap your fingers, and you could pop into any of them. A child rocker, a toe tuck, a bolt, a no support bow, a split stance, any of those exercises or drills that are really just called that to mask a skill, which is what we're trying to get to you guys as a skill. If you're dominating that milestone, those milestones from A to Z, you're going to be GOATA, because you can rest assured you're going to be GOATA because you know the nervous system is a servant to the environment, right? You didn't become WOTA by mistake. You were meticulous. You just weren't conscious of it, but you were meticulously drilling this improper behavior. And that's one thing that was huge for me is I realized like, oh, I did this. It was so I can undo this. It's like it's deflating and empowering all at once because you're like, shoot, I'm to blame for my WOTA, but I'm also going to be to praise for my GOATA because I'm going to be the one that gets to do it. I get to switch over the nervous system. So it's just a case, though, of being very deliberate and being very delicate with how you go about it and being very disciplined. And when you're entering into a workout system, it's like you're walking down a tunnel, man. You're walking into a stadium and you got all these fans saying shit to you. Can you put on the blinders? Can you put on the headphones and be like, dude, I'm going to walk this path. I'm going to do isometrics. I'm going to walk away from the weight. I'm going to trust that I'm actually going to be faster. I'm actually going to be stronger. I'm going to be more durable. I'm going to have more endurance because the athletes that trust it, they get those results. But at the beginning, all your preconceived notions, all the things your friends and your family are telling you about exercise are not going to be relatable to what is asked of you in GOATA because it's a completely different blueprint, right? And so we all have this mindset of, well, my strength is only relegated to these weight room numbers. my speed. No, it's not the case. Like, you can drop 3/10 by doing just go to work, because now you're training something that is real. Now you're basing it off of, I would believe, actual evidence, right? Like, literal evidence is going to be something that is, you can rest your head on.
Well, that's you know, I kind of, when you say that, and you know, you're talking about what you're saying, there's the belief system that needs to be built, and that's where the education comes in. That's why, like, we pushing now to get the athletes educated. Buy the cert. It's $1,000.
So much.
You know what I'm saying? Go in there, make it. Yeah, you're making $1 million a year, or even if it's I had a dad just now. I just saw the money come through or whatever. It was a parent. He said, "Dude, I'm not a trainer. I got a freshman son who's probably going to be a recruit. I need to know this shit." And this is where, you know, I go back and I think about when Zach Tellender tried to come in 4 or 5 years ago and like, this is trash, it's a fad, it's snake oil. And he pulled up our website. And it was a long time ago. So the website was in these beginning phases, and it didn't make a, you know, and Gilly, the way that Gilly had the website labeled out, he had the crawling baby tribe. He had the, what he did was he put up the baby, and he put up the indigenous, and he put up the super athlete tribe. He called it the tribe at the end, right? You know, he had a play on words that was a little different than what, you know, and that was what was unique about Gilly, because it's probably what allowed him to be able to see what he saw. You know what I'm saying? And you love him for it, but yeah, he didn't care.
Yeah,
like,
they all trash, dude.
They all tried.
They all raggedy. He would say they all raggedy ass trash.
So, yeah. a bunch of cadaver words. But anyway, and then, like, I remember going to LSU and talking, and they would sit there and say, like, well, yeah, they were making fun of those things because they didn't understand what they were looking at. He wasn't understanding that he was looking at a concept that was built off of studying durable people. Whereas, like, when I think about, like, Marucci, when I sat down with Jack Marucci and I talked to him at LSU, and he's like, yeah, well, you can't change human movement, because his belief system was built around something that was built off of cadaver science. What's a cadaver? A dead body. How many bad reps been put on that dead body over time? You know what I'm saying? So when you look at that as your belief system, well, of course, GOATA don't make no sense. Well, no, because it's not built off of durability or non-durable or anything like that. It's built off of, okay, let's lay it on the table, let's do this and that. Well, I'm a weight trainer. I'm an Olympic lifter. I want to lift weights. That's what I love to do. Fuck that, my knee. The next post behind ours was my 70-year-old knee. Bitch, we trying to protect you. And you biting the hand that's trying to protect you, and you sat up there and literally made fun of the very thing that could save your knee, because you wasn't willing to open your mind and look at it and understand where it came from. Dude, if I want to go be an astronaut, or if somebody tells me, I got to figure out about space first. I can't just go up there. You know what I'm saying? You got to educate yourself. What do we go to school for? Do the due diligence work to figure it out. Once you believe in it and see it, it makes the work easier.
Well, because everybody has faith. It's just, what do you have faith in? The people like Zach, the people like the other ones, they have faith. They just have faith in science as a corporation. They see science as a corporation, as there's a CEO, whereas we see science as a process to give us answers. So they're making those determinations off of science based off of where it came from. In case in point, a CEO. This has to come from academia, right? This can't come from a New Orleans place. It's like, well, science is a process, and anybody can take part in it. Anybody can do the process of science to ask to pose a hypothesis and then come up with a theory. Anybody can do that. So that's what Gilly did. He's asking, how does the body travel through space for a lifetime and never get hurt for no apparent reason? Okay, so it's got to start with a question. And then from there, we've got to go and ask, well, who's durable? That's the next logical question. Who are the durable people? Here, let's pick these tribes. All right, let's pick all of them. So we got a whole lifespan. We got a multitude of different people. Put them in a box, study them. Tell me what comes out. Okay, as you're studying those things, now take the opposite. Take all the fragile people. What should we take? Well, let's take ACL shreds for sure, Achilles shreds, non-contact, put them in a box. Knee replacement candidates, joint replacement candidates of any kind, put them in the box. Now you start to study the two boxes. So you've already set up true science. You've already set up a better lab experiment, if you will, by just asking the right question and then picking the right people out of the population to study. Then the common denominators trickle down. Then the spectrum comes clean up on the screen of like, oh, these are the GOATA behaviors: straight foot, inner ankle bone high, tail to crown, bow, corner, head control, yada, yada. So what we have found is that those behaviors are the most reliable movement behaviors on the planet. That's another way of looking at them, is that nobody wants to speak in absolutes. That's fine. But based off the evidence, based off of what we've seen and what we've shown, it would be more reliable to land straight-footed, inner ankle bone high, in a bow and in a corner with good head control than it would be to land crooked foot, inner ankle bone low, no bow, no corner, no head control. Based off the evidence, what's reliable, what's unreliable, it's clearly being shown to you by GOATA. The GOATA movement system is showing you that these are the more reliable patterns that you can put your trust in. These are things that, based off the evidence, I wouldn't go there. Like, based off of what I've seen and what I now know and what I've looked at with anatomical evidence and frame-by-frame evidence, I just can't make a good decision and put my heel on the ground. It can't be a good decision anymore because I have too much evidence in front of me to make a poor decision. Yeah. That's got nothing to do with who Gilly is or anything. It's just clear-cut looking at what's in front of you. It's doing real science. So when these people like a Zach or whoever it may be, a Naughty, a Weck, you realize how far they'll take science. They'll take science as far as they like it. They won't go to the uncomfortable conclusion of, oh, hey, Rick, the last 8 years has been, outside of familiarizing yourself with terms, you've been wasting your time. You haven't gone anywhere near GOATA. You got some ideas, but you need to study this because this is what's reliable. So that's the difference, is people will only go as far as they go, and they like that brand of science, whatever that brand is. They'll stop there. They'll get as far as spiral, and they'll stop. They'll get as far as spinal engine, and they'll stop. And they'll be like, that's my science. I like that science. That's as good as I'll go. But what about this straight foot inside ankle bone high? What about this bow? Oh, that's nonsense. You don't get to say that. You have to be open-minded, and you have to look at it. That's why we look at all the other systems. I have a ton of functional patterns video. I have a ton of David Weck video. I have a ton of Olympic. I gather all these different systems. I don't just say, well, it doesn't matter. No, if I have to find an understanding of something, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to spend time looking at it. Yeah, fascia is another one, right? Oh, I'm going to stop at fascia. That won't get you anywhere. You know, I'm going to stop at breathing. That won't get you anywhere. Like, you got to go further. You have to look at all the evidence. So you have a case of people that are now slandering. Like, I saw a video of Naughty slandering GOATA, and it was hilarious because he's slandering GOATA, and his constant slandering is always they teach bow-legged. Even though we've come out, you don't even know, we've said it for years now, it's not bow-legged. We've explained the multiplanar bow, yada, yada. And then he uses,
well, he's hanging on by a thread is what's happening. Yeah. So the people that are following him, it's like the Zach Woodard dude the other day. Going on there, and he's like, all the movement gurus are doing this and that, and they, look at me, I didn't lose my spiral. I break down the video, I send it to him in his inbox, and he's like, crickets. Because you have. If they had video commentary or replies on this thing, I would crush every other system that's out.
You got FP up there, you got Naughty talking about GOATA, slandering it, because they don't want to, either they have looked at the evidence and they don't want to admit that they looked at the evidence and that they can't explain it, or they're literally just not looking at the evidence. Either one's bad. Because nobody ever said bow-legged. We've never said go lateral. We've been saying it since 2019. It's the first recode is GOATA Joe. He had a lateral. He was bow-legged. Tore his knee. It's the first one that they fixed was that situation. But then even worse is he's showing Bam and Carly as the examples for GOATA. And I'm like, well, I have to agree with you, Naughty, because they're not GOATA. Those two don't know what the fuck they're doing. They've been doing it wrong since the beginning. So it's like that's the perception that's out there. It's pure laziness. You have these people that are either in the system and are still lazy, that don't want to learn it, your Bam and your Carlys, or you have the people on the outside that are lazy and they don't want to actually look at the evidence. Either way, y'all are doing the same grab-ass game of fitness, on the other side. Y'all are just out there on the turf doing jumping jacks and shit. Well, then guess what? Belichick and fucking John Madden over here are in the fucking film room, and we're reverse engineering the future of the game. And y'all are fucking sleeping. We got the discipline. Yeah. We're blitzing off the backside, and you ain't got no protection for it. You're getting hit in the back every single time. You don't know where the blitz is coming from. You don't know how to slide the protection because all you've been doing is the same bullshit that got you into this position of trying to learn GOATA in the first place. So it's an interesting time because it's like the same people that I think they were hoping in 2019 with, well, I'll just say it's bow-legged, and then this thing should be done in 2021 at the least. It's still here. And then you have the other people that they hope that, well, I can take it and I can steal it and I can go do my own thing with it. I couldn't imagine waking up in the morning, Gary, and parroting, plagiarizing another man's system, another man's work. I couldn't imagine going to a page and talking about these concepts and pretending that I didn't go get them somewhere, that I didn't spend years. I couldn't imagine citing Philip Beach's work and not citing Philip. I just can't imagine what type of person that would be to do that. Like, I can't even imagine how you would have to be thinking to go into that process. But it's like, that's where you're at, you know? That's where you're at with these participation trophy kids. I work out, so my workout works. It's like, that's just not how this situation plays, dog.
Dude, and the bad thing is you know, you gotta, it's like anything in life. Dude, listen, Rick, you came into this thing 2-3 years after me. And when the lane that you took in it, was different than my lane. So I had to learn to be coached by you. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then on the training side, it's like, well, Rick, that don't work. Dude, I'm in here doing it every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's bouncing. If we didn't have that ability to do that, and we just held on to what we wanted to do, fucking GOATA would be nowheres right now. I've been being coached in this thing, and I like to consider myself an alpha in the room. But I have to be coachable. Like, dude, listen, a great leader, Donald Clay's words, a great leader knows how to follow when it's time to follow. And that's one of the things. Like, listen, my goal is really to make my athlete better. My goal is to really take this kid to the next level. It was the disagreement with me with everything, and it caused problems sometimes with me and Gilly sometimes, because Gilly was more a little passive, like, man, let him make a mistake. And I was like, you know, and it was why we were such a good combination too, was that you had that yin and yang, like, you know what I'm saying? But it was like, no, I got a 12-year-old's knee on the line here. I don't have fucking time to make mistakes. Like, this is what it is. I have battle tested this shit. I have put it, but you know what now? The motherfuckers that couldn't stick around and they couldn't stay here and they couldn't hang in there, well, guess what? I had a fucking call today from another person in an NFL organization that was in the room whenever the guy that went get tested and got released medically couldn't get released by their staff. And he said, fuck this shit y'all doing. I'm going to do it in New Orleans. My fucking career's on the line. That's the difference, is that the people that are actually the ones that's being controlled by these systems now are starting to say, you know what, man, I'm going to take control over my body. Because y'all been telling me to push through this shit. You've been telling me for 7 months you're going to fix me. Guess what? They're releasing people like crazy in the NFL. And it don't matter who you are. And the other thing that they're doing too is they're giving money out like it's fucking Halloween candy. And if you ain't available to make that money, guess what? Dude, I don't care if you're the postman, if you work at the lunch line at your school. If your back hurts, you're a different person at work. There's no doubt in my mind. Pain will captivate and hold your body hostage your whole fucking life if you don't clear that shit up. It will ruin relationships. It'll do whatever. It will cause problems for everybody. Everybody around you, your entire environment will feel your pain. And then it's not how we're supposed to live. It would be a nasty joke by God to create a body that could live for 100 years old and the tissue inside of the body start breaking down at 35.
Good point.
That would be horrible. So I don't know. I got a client coming in.
All right.
I got a
Line
Rico
on that.
coming.
That was good stuff.
Yeah. We'll be here next week.
Real quick, so
get the sales
guys,
page
everything's
up.
on Go to Movement now. So like if we got coaches in the room, you're gonna see that if you're on the browser, you'll be able to log into your Recode 225 or your cert. You'll be able to log into Recode 225 and the cert from the Go to Movement page. If you're on mobile, you'll have to go to the top right 3 bars, click it, and then cert login will be at the bottom. So everything's going to now be centralized on the gotomovement.com. So if you want information on, we really have 3 products, guys. It's real simple. Recode 225 is a do-it-yourself training program. That's going to be updated very soon here with an A to Z Recode program. With the milestones built in, this is how you're going to recode yourself. This is how you're going to get back to GOATA status. We have a movement assessment. If you're somebody that would like to get an assessment done on your current self and get a better understanding or GOATA and get sort of started on the Recode program, and then you can just translate right over, or you can transfer right over to Recode 225, click on the movement assessment and take a look. If you're a coach, athlete, parent, like we said, this certification has been used for all different types of people for different reasons, but go to the coaching certification page, click that, you'll get more information. You can even opt in to see one of the full videos that we have in the Institute. You'll get a better idea of what's taught in there. We have payment plans available, so we have new payment options across the website as a whole, but that's been a question we got a lot. Can we do payment plans for the cert? Now we have those up. So if you want to go, you can go there and you can use payment plans to take care of your business and get started on your certification and pay it off at your own leisure. Like I said, it's a at your own leisure certification. It's a do it from your home, get your certification with never leaving. You can come down to the lab weekend if you want. You have that free ticket. But to get your certificate, you don't have to actually leave your home. You just got to watch your videos, follow your prompts, and then you'll be set. So we're making it more feasible from a time standpoint, from a money standpoint, and then from an ease of access standpoint. Like I said, just go to gotomovement.com and check out all that stuff. They got some opt-in boxes so you guys can get some extra information. Follow the YouTube, follow our IGs. I'm sure you all already are doing that. But this will...
All the coaches that are in there, y'all eligible to get the 30% affiliate code if you got the lifetime membership. Yeah. And now the cert is included in that too. So if you're selling certs out there and you're a coach, you got that affiliate code through the lifetime membership on Recode 225, you make 30% of that sale. You make 30% of any sale off of GoToMovement.com. So
for coaches.
Just
and one more thing
too. But,
for our GOATA coaches, for people either are GOATA coaches or are looking for GOATA coaches, we are currently building that page as we speak, and that will be attached to GoToMovement.com as well. So you'll be able to find a coach. We've been renovating that page on the other side, and we'll bring it over as soon as it's done. So look out for the Recode program, the coaching page, and then our coaching certification is still on sale for the rest of this month. Go to the GoToMovement.com and click the coaching certification. Like I said, there's payment plans available.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all's support, Anthony.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
We appreciate your support.
All right, I'll talk to you.
All right, y'all have a good one. Later.